It's the Flow Friday Night Sports Show. Carl Carrington from Flow News 24, Flowman, has made his way into the studio and wafted in, has come in some... What is that smell?
I don't know. It's worth me getting to check it out.
Roast.
I reckon we'll get through Carl Carrington here, who absolutely gave it to me this morning when I walked into work because I went for a roughie on the first AFL game of the year. And, when you go for the Carlton Footy Club first up against Richmond and Richmond win, what do you get sung to you the next morning?
Yellow and black.
Oh, no. Carl.
I hated doing that, boys.
Oh, well, didn't they knock you out last year?
Yeah, I do believe so. But
The Richmond crew?
I still have to give it to Flowman for picking the blue baggers, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
Yes, we are the
No more singing in this segment. Gentlemen, we're going to talk about women's sport. We don't want to scare them off. Love the girls. The AFLW continues on, and we're getting towards finals time there. Carlos, how did that go last week?
Yeah, plenty of interesting results happening with Richmond, first of all, beating Gold Coast by almost 15 points. The Giants got the chocolates over St Kilda. North Melbourne beat the Bulldogs, and the Crows went down to Melbourne in a bit of an upset.
They did go down in an upset, Carl. And I tell you what, they're in a bit of jeopardy now, the Crows. They haven't cemented a final spot yet. The Western Bulldogs are breathing down their necks. And in fact, I think they play them this week, Flowman.
Yeah, really interesting because you've got the Fremantle Dockers on top at 6-1, and then the next two clubs straight after them also 6-1. And then you look at the next group of teams. That's Brisbane and Collingwood, by the way. Adelaide Crows 5-2, North Melbourne 5-2. Melbourne joined them on 5-2. Daisy Pearce will be excited about that win because that puts them right in the hunt for this top four. And I think, look, the Crows would be really disappointed with that loss because they fancied themselves as the minor premier here.
Well, they don't now, Carl. I think what's the final setup here? I think it's a final 6 in AFLW, isn't it?
I do believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So 6 is the line. The Western Bulldogs and Carlton. Look, Carlton will need everything to go right for them to play finals from here. I'm pretty sure it's a race in 7 at this point. And that Adelaide Crows Western Bulldogs game is almost an elimination final for the Dogs if they must win that game this week.
Yeah, definitely. The Crows will be very disappointed with that loss against Melbourne, I believe, especially after starting so well. And Erin Phillips has been on fire for the last 3 or 4 weeks. She obviously had a bit of an off game against Melbourne, and Daisy Pearce got the better of her. But yeah, the Adelaide versus Western Bulldogs game will be one to watch, definitely.
Carlton, of course, Fremantle, that almost knocks them out. So just moving on to this week's games, though, there are some big games. Look at that game, Fremantle taking on Melbourne. That is a huge game, considering the ladder. Other big games, Brisbane and North Melbourne. It doesn't get any more important than that. And should Collingwood towel up St Kilda as we think they might? The Saints have been okay at times this year, but Collingwood will lock up a final spot with a win. Not only that, they look good then to finish top 2, which is where you want to be in a 16 finals comp.
Absolutely. I think Collingwood are the team to beat at the moment. Alongside Fremantle, I think the Brisbane versus North Melbourne game will be interesting to see if North Melbourne can overtake Adelaide into that top 4, but Collingwood look the team to beat for me.
Well, gentlemen, just to play this out from an Adelaide Crows point of view, they play the Western Bulldogs this weekend, as I've mentioned a few times already. If they go down in that game, if we just scroll down a little bit here on our computer screen, you will see the Adelaide Crows' final match of the season is against Collingwood. Now, that could be for all the apples, folks.
Absolutely.
Yep, they could be playing for a top 2 spot there, or the Crows could be playing to hold on to a finals berth. So it's a tight comp.
Yeah, definitely. Adelaide have to get a really good result this week. You'd think to make sure they do finish in that top 2, hopefully, because that's really their best chance of going far into the postseason.
Flowman?
And it's interesting too. I'm going to ask you, Carl, about this the AFL women's competition this year. We've got 9 rounds of football in the season. Do you think it's too short, and should we be looking for the competition to go actually for a longer period? I mean, is 9 rounds, given we've increased the amount of clubs that we've now got playing, is 9 rounds too short?
To put it bluntly, yes, absolutely. But there's also the case for the AFL men's competition and all the eyes being fixated on that when the AFL women's overlaps with that competition. So, unfortunately, 9 games is not really enough at the moment, but hopefully that maybe increases in future years.
All right.
I agree. I'd like to see everyone play everyone once.
I reckon that's what I was alluding to.
Yep. Whether or not they get to when the competition expands again, I guess they'd have to relook at it then. But yeah, I'd like to see everyone play everyone once.
All right, now, I'm going to ask Carl. Now, I asked him during the week on the new program at 5 o'clock every night, the Sports Fix, which is absolutely so interesting that we've got each day here on the Flow some local sports and then getting some pieces from yourself and then Carl coming in and then Ellis and Dan too, our Flow News 24 writers. This is really, really great. But he got me onto a topic this week, one that I've avoided for my whole life watching AFL, and that is AFL fantasy. There is enough things that they can have a fantasy about, let alone football, but apparently...
hang on a minute. It's a family show, Flowman. Come on.
Well, I was keeping it...
Okay, fair enough.
There's a very much a good reasoning behind this. But Carl, you've got into the fantasy, you started the season, we've had one game and you came in and you said, Wayne, I've got the fantasy down pat, I'm going to win the Toyota Ute.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm off in fantasy land at the moment with the season starting. I had a ripper opening night with Jaden Short and Dusty Martin really carrying me with their big scores. So yeah, I'm really keen for this season, and plenty of people are so as well.
Yes, I'm one of them. I've got my fantasy team in front. I've had a few tips from the guru. Yep. Yeah. I've got a couple of leagues that I'm involved in. One every year I pick is once upon a time in early in my radio career, Flowman, we did a bit of an upgrade in one of these stations that I previously worked for, and we got rid of all the CDs. And I found a very interesting CD, a name of which I cannot in good conscience repeat on the radio. But I decided to give it away for the winner of my fantasy league. And ever since that time, I've given away a ridiculous album for the winner of my fantasy league. Now, last year it was the KFC Christmas album.
Yes.
The winner received that. This year I'm not sure where we're going to go with it, but if you've got any ridiculous CDs that you'd like me to give away, I'm your man.
I'll tell you what, that with the KFC might have been lost in a fantasy. With that. But Carl Carrington, he has been completely... we've been struggling to get him to concentrate on his work this week because he's in the fantasy thing every 5 minutes he can get there. But with that CD you're giving away, maybe Backman Turner... Remember Backman Turner Overdrive?
You ain't seen nothing yet?
No. Lost in the Fantasy was one of the big hits.
Oh, there you go. Very good. All right, Carl, I've got a couple of questions for you on fantasy before we wrap up today. Who is the must-have player in AFL fantasy this year?
Must-have.
If you're going to start your team, the very first selection of your AFL fantasy team is who?
Well, looking at your side, I not to be too critical, but my must-have at the start of the year was Max Gawn in the ruck. The most expensive player, albeit, but he's that for a reason. He's the best accumulator of the ball in the ruck department, and therefore he gets the most points. So Max Gawn is my number one. Yeah, definitely.
If you're wondering how this works, and I probably should have explained this to the layman who don't know about AFL fantasy, you get points for a kick, a handball, a mark, a ruck tap. So if you get a lot of kicks, take a lot of marks, kick a few goals, get a lot of ruck taps, you're going to score a lot of points.
And the thing with Max Gawn as well, his first 3 weeks he's playing all rookie rucks, so you get a point for hit-outs. So he's going to have
40
a galore of hit-outs.
Yeah.
And I know that you get a buying price too, don't you, for each of the players? They're set at a buying price, so therefore if you can get your dollars as low as possible but get the most amount of knock hit-outs and taps and marks and goals and so on, fantasy points, for the low amount of dollars, don't you get more points overall and you win the Toyota?
Well, yeah, they actually give you a salary cap of $13 million to start with, $16 million if you barrack for Carlton.
Yep.
But...
Fair shout.
Thank you.
But I used up every dollar of mine, Carl. Have you got any left over?
I'm sitting at 66k left over, 66,000. So I've got a bit of wiggle room to upgrade maybe my bench spot also.
Fair enough. I need to start paying some of these players under the counter, I think. I'll tell you what.
I thought you might be going the Adelaide Crows way there, but anyway.
We're going to check in with you again next week on your fantasy team, Carl Carrington, and see how it's getting along. I'm tipping it'll go a lot better than mine, Flo, man.
Here it is if you got Carlton going the way you've got them.
Carl, great chatting with you, my good man. And make sure you check out Carl's work on our Flow News 24 website. And Flo, man, what are you doing?
Heading on out the studio, I think.
Where are you going?
Oh, they got something's cooking out there, and you've got plenty of work to get through yourself here. I think we might just leave
If you're going to go, our next guest is an Olympian. in fact. So you want to be quick. Our next guest, I'll take care of this one. His name is Lang Harrow.
Yep.
He is the head coach of the Aussie Spirit. And if you're going to go, I want a latte when you come back, please.
I'll be listening, don't you worry. I'll be out there getting my coffee and looking forward to being back with you here on the Friday Night Sports Show.
Thanks, Carl.
Cheers, boys.